Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 114 for Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. A giant bomb is rising from the ashes. Tony Hawk 3 and 4 is getting a familiar face back. And Microsoft is cutting more jobs. We'll have all of that in a little bit. But first, let's talk to the people joining us. Alicia, how are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. How are you?
End of the semester, right? Like classes are over and everything. So like it's pretty fantastic just to be, just to have like no real responsibilities. I say that I'm also teaching an online class, so I do have some responsibility.
I was going to say, I've definitely turned my grades in and finished my dissertation. Yep, I've definitely done that already.
Oh, I have turned my grades in. I am done with that much.
I still have all the grades for the 101 students or the 101 instructors to turn in. So.
Christina, how are you beyond turning those grades in?
Outside of that, I'm pretty good. I like the new fancy intro. That was the let me tell you what's going to happen. Very calm 101 of you.
Did I signpost that well enough for you?
It was well signposted, A+. Yeah, I'm good.
Mario, how are you?
Good. Still have some grading that I'll be finishing up after this. Yeah, it was good. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, it was this weekend when you were at the wrestling
I was at the wrestle.
The problem was I started to say WrestleMania. I was like, no, it wasn't WrestleMania. And then I was like, I don't know what event it was actually.
I just love how quick that was. Yes, I was at the wrestle.
Yeah, this weekend, Backlash, which is the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania, was in St. Louis, and so I went to that.
And how did that go?
It was good. It was a lot of fun. It was one of those things that this being John Cena's farewell tour, it was cool to get to see
a clip of him.
Yeah, he defended the championship. He faced Randy Orton, which is a 2006 my age person's dream, I guess. It was cool, like I said, to see the two of them have what will probably be one of their final matches against one another. Yeah, it was a good show. It was, and it's always one of those things where there was one match where I'm kind of like, I don't really know what the point of that was, but we'll see how it plays out.
I feel like that's pretty much any wrestling show.
Yeah.
There's always one or two matches where you're like, okay, that happened.
This one in particular, all the other ones feel pretty clear in terms of like where they'll probably go with the story, but this one, I was like, I don't really know why. Pat McAfee was in the match. I know he's just like involved generally, but I don't fully understand. But like I said, we'll see where the story goes.
I feel like a lot of times when I have that sort of reaction, like I don't really get the point of this, I later discovered this was a last minute change where like somebody got hurt and they had to substitute someone in for the match.
Yeah, I don't think it was that, just because they built this up for like a few weeks.
Okay.
Like I said, I'll have to see. It would be very odd if this is the conclusion of this very miniature story arc. Like it
Right.
feels like something else needs to come with at least the other character. So we'll see. And I'm watching either way. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we said, it is the end of the semester, so that's I feel like a big relief off everyone's shoulders.
Yeah.
Classes are done. Grades are maybe not completely in yet.
They will be within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, they are required within 24 hours.
Exactly. That's why they will be.
I think Rebecca sent an email this morning, like with the gentle, hey, you guys remember that we're turning in grades?
Yeah.
Which always like, it's not meant that way, but it always, even when Sandy sent it, always felt like the most passive aggressive thing. Like, hey, does everybody remember that grades are going in tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's on the forefront of all of our minds. So yeah, so end of the semester, and that means we all actually have some more free time, which maybe meant that some of us played some more games. It did for me at least. So why don't we move on into what you've been playing, Alicia? What have you been playing?
They signpost this one. I'm just yes.
This is what happens when I don't have to prepare and teach classes. I actually have time to think about this podcast.
It's so smooth.
You know what makes it less smooth is when you call it out. I'll tell you exactly what Justin is doing and why.
Hey, this is an educational podcast on several fronts.
Just going to design the 101 curriculum around this podcast.
Yep.
Specifically this episode.
Yeah. Tune into episode 114 to see a dynamite example of signposting.
Would have been great for group speech too if he'd asked you to go first, but he asked me to go first, Christina.
Fart. Okay. You're right.
Yeah, so it has been. I finally, for the first time since spring break, I took out my Switch and turned it on. So I finally beat Ace Attorney Investigations, the first one. And I definitely think it's the weakest game, like overall out of the entire series.
Okay.
I think what I was thinking about this morning, and I'm like one of the things I really like about the series as a whole is like it's not massive scale. Like it's one dude. It's Phoenix or Apollo just like trying to get by. And I think the first Investigations game goes way too massive in scale of like the last case you're dealing with two countries that have been separated and are supposed to be coming back together, and it's like you're working with Interpol and I'm like this is too big.
Yeah.
But then I started Investigations 2 and I played through the first case of that, and I'm already back in love with the series.
I feel like games do that, particularly in long-running franchises. There's this, need to escalate the game, right? The scale of the story, the scale of the gameplay, and at some point, sometimes they, I think you're right, that they overreach.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty different formula as well, right? The Investigations games from the other.
Yes and no. It's more of the like go examine stuff.
I guess I just think like you're actually controlling the character and running around in a world.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's not like it doesn't, but
It's less visual novel.
Yeah, I guess I think about like I could see them like we're trying something not completely new, but like this is very new.
Yeah.
And so maybe that they in the second one they're like, okay, we understood how to sort of like tweak and tailor this to be a more polished version.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is, I know when they started making the first game, it wasn't supposed to be a Miles Edgeworth game. It was supposed to be Emma Skye. And like, yeah, you can tell in the first game, like where they realized they wanted to make it a Miles Edgeworth game instead and where they kind of like turned. Because like the things that are that smaller scale, you're working with your weird girl assistant is Kay Faraday, and her father was killed during Edgeworth's first case, and but like you get that more like intimate human storyline with her and the Yatagarasu thief, and so like that stuff still works really well, but where it goes too big, it's like yeah. Versus Investigations 2 already, again, just even playing the first chapter, it literally starts with bringing you home. You start off and the president of Zhengfa is giving a speech and you get called in when there's an attempted assassination attempt. But it feels like it's, like you said, you still have that where you're like running around controlling the character, but then it feels like it's built in rather than this was the main basis and then we added in the confrontations and the visual novel style.
Sure.
It feels much more integrated. And the other thing that's really cool is like you get to now, where the original trilogy added in the Magatama for you to make the investigating portion more interesting, where like you have to gather enough clues and know what to present to people at the right time to get them to tell you anything before you even go to court. So now with this, it's introduced. Edgeworth does mind chess, where you have to kind of choose like, okay, do you bide your time and wait for them to just talk themselves into a hole and break? When do you say something? What do you say? So that's really neat too.
That's interesting because I have no familiarity with these games. Like I have the original, like I played the original game. This sounds an awful lot like inspired by LA Noire. LA Noire, a lot of what you're talking about as far as like having to find the clues and present them to the right person, right? And it not necessarily telling you like, oh, you need these 3 items to talk to this person. It's like, no, you have to figure out which items. And then the whole thing about what do you say to this person? When do you say it?
Yeah.
Right? Like minus the like LA Noire had the facial tech where you have to like judge, is this person getting nervous and everything. Doesn't sound like it has that, but like everything else sounds like much closer to LA Noire than what I traditionally think of as a Phoenix Wright game.
Yeah. And much closer to like,
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a positive thing.
yeah. Much closer again to like what the second and third game and what the Apollo Justice games do as well, where you aren't just doing this in the courtroom of present the right thing at the right time. You're doing it in the investigation portion as well. I will say it's already like the first chapter doesn't have any of the characters who I'm used to seeing in like fan fiction and that, so I haven't had to adapt to the official names just yet, but I know it's coming. And I'm like, it's going to be so weird when I get there. Because we've had 15 years of the fan translation. So, like, it's fairly well established in the fandom of, like, Sebastian DeBest and Raymond Shields. And now I'm like, I'm going to get here and it's going to be like Eustace Winter and Eddie Defender. And I'm going to be like, what? Who? Oh, yeah, it's those people.
It's like when they changed it from Eggman to Robotnik.
Yeah.
A definite downgrade.
Yeah. But it's just like, so I am already back in love. And it's really cool because when you first start the first case, you start the investigation, one of the first people who you find is a character who is one of the main antagonists of the last case of the second game. And so seeing him again and being like, I texted my sister a picture. I just went like completely bug-eyed and was like, no, not him. But he's also such a fascinating character that I'm really excited to see him back and that we get to, he escapes. So I'm going to get to see more of him. And I did not expect that. So I am really hyped.
That's cool. I think that makes me more interested in the franchise. The fact that it is a sort of connected universe and not sort of standalone. I mean, they did that in the first game, right? Like the cases sort of like loop back and tie together. But I wasn't as sure like that as the franchise continued, they would continue to develop like that as a broader mythology. And so that's kind of interesting.
And I think that's one of the things too that makes me think the first Investigations game is the weakest of the whole series because I mean you have some of those connections, you have Franziska, you have Emma Scott, you have Larry and Wendy Oldbag and like all of this, but it felt very disconnected from the universe as a whole, whereas this one already feels like it's rebuilding those connections, not just with main characters who we would expect to see come back, but, seeing, if I say the name, it means it's not spoilers. Seeing Shelly the Killer again was like,
Is her name is Shelly the Killer?
his name, yes.
His name is Shelly the Killer.
You got to remember, this series lives off of puns.
That's not really a pun.
That is yep. That's the killer.
Blatantly stating
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is like when you name your kid Dennis and like they're like 70% more likely to become a dentist. I feel like if you're
I thought you were going to say to become a menace.
I mean, most dentists are.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Shelly the Killer is almost certainly nom de plume. He's. I doubt that he was born with the name de Killer, but also this is Ace Attorney, so who knows? Apollo Justice was born with the last name Justice.
Fair. You've said that several times, and for whatever reason, that's floated over my head. But the killer, I was like,
Apollo
wait
Justice floated over your head.
Yep.
To be fair, for the longest time, we all thought that Apollo Justice chose the last name Justice for himself.
But no, it was his.
And then the Spirit of Justice revealed, no, it was his father's last
feel like
name.
you
Well,
just
wait till you get a load of the fact that the guy's name is Ace Attorney.
Is it really?
No. But it is Phoenix. Right. It is right.
I do feel like you just had your Phoenix down moment where like all of a sudden this all linked up.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
But no, we get Will Powers, Jack Hammer. Like, this game lives off of goofy names.
It'd be better if it was Jack Handy.
Yeah, but either way,
Wendy Oldbag.
that's my favorite. That's gonna be a drag name.
Larry Butts.
No, that's a drag name.
No, if it was Harry Butts, it'd be a drag name.
Well, that's what Gumshoe keeps accidentally calling him.
Oh.
Yeah, the detective is Dick Gumshoe. Like,
Okay, this game now makes so much more sense to me. Continue.
but yeah, I'm like I said, I know very little overall of the plot of this game because usually I know some of the characters from fan fiction, but I did a decent job of steering away from a lot of spoilers, I think. I mean, I know certain characters who are not so good, but I don't know if the game is ever subtle with you about that they're not good or if they're just straight up not good from the beginning. But like, I did not know about Shelly the Killer reappearing, and genuinely, like, this man is terrifying in game 2 when he's there. He is, yeah. I don't want to say too much because spoilers but he's the perfect example of like an Evo character who has their own code. And like that comes forward very much in this case as well. And I'm like, and then he just like Dillingers his way out by stealing a lifeboat and getting away. And I'm like, so you're telling me he's going to come back again and we're going to see more of this dude.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Cool. Is that it?
Yeah, that's really, yeah, Pokemon TCG Pocket dropped the Solgaleo and Lunala packs, so those have been fun. But I have not moved to the next location on Office Cat, so I do not have an update on the Fisher Farmer father.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
That's been my favorite drama. Personally.
But yeah, that's the big stuff.
All right. Christina.
So I haven't played a whole lot. I did watch all of South of Midnight.
Christina.
Wow.
You just jump right into talking about these games. Like,
Where's your signposting?
The semester's over.
you get less professional, I get more professional.
It takes a lot to be professional for those few months. Now it's gone. So yeah, I watch all of South of Midnight, and Mario was absolutely right. The story is amazing. So good. It's a beautiful game. It's not quite the stop motion stuff, but it's
That's mostly the cutscenes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
and it's really just that beginning cutscene, really.
yeah. I think they try to emulate it in later cutscenes. It's definitely not to the same extent,
Yeah.
but they're definitely going for that style.
For sure. But the music is amazing. And it like builds you up. Like they do such a good job of pairing it with what you're supposed to be doing. The person that I watched doesn't normally play a lot of these types of games, and so didn't have the same, like, I don't know, what's the word, commentary that you did about like the gameplay, about like it being, about it being nothing new. But she also doesn't play a lot of those games, and so she was very complimentary of all of that. But everything, I mean, like Mario said, even if you're just watching for the story itself, it is definitely worth a watch.
I suspect that's the sort of game that people who are less into video games will be more impressed with.
Yes, yes.
Right? Like, I feel like these games come out on a regular basis, and like Star Wars Outlaws feels like that sort of game. Like, I feel like if I gave Star Wars Outlaws to a friend who isn't playing video games all the time, they would be sort of blown away by that game.
For sure. And I think so here too, because the combat is easy enough. Like she did like fall a couple of times into the water, which it's toxic swamp water. And so, it did restart, like what Mario said, but because she was just so like tunnel focused on what she was supposed to be doing, she didn't say anything about like not having to go back and redo it. But yeah, it was so good. And I do see what Mario said about like the final boss, or what you think is going to be like the final boss, is very disappointing. Not like it builds up to so much and then it's not that good, especially when the other boss fights have been. But the thing that comes right after that, to me, kind of made up for it. Without spoiling it. But yeah, the story is so good. So good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The only other thing was and I saw this wasn't on the list, so I'll go ahead and mention it now. Dead by Daylight was featured at the PAX East, and they announced all of their year 9 things there. So like Springtrap from Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be the new villain, which we all knew. They announced this like 6 months ago. But like Matthew Hillard is going to be
Lillard.
Lillard. Why have I been seeing Hillard everywhere? Lillard, sorry. And that's how it's saved in my brain. Lillard. Okay. Matthew Lillard is going to be one of the legacy skins for Springtrap, and he actually did some of the voice lines of like, so like as you're
right, he's in the film version. Yeah.
And so as you're being hunted
I was trying to figure out, like, from
It's not
Scream?
Shaggy.
No. He's
Or
in
Shaggy. Shaggy would work, too.
He's the shitty
He plays
owner.
William Afton.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so as Springtrap is hunting you, basically, you hear Matthew Lillard be like, come here. Like, it's like awful little lines. And then there's already been a lot of speculation about like what the big year 10 thing is going to be. I don't know. It looks like it's going to be a good year and for Dead by Daylight, but that's it.
Yeah, I didn't include that in the rundown because you said it had already been announced. I was like, oh, well, maybe it's not actually news.
Some news is like the actual like what Springtrap does, which I haven't watched that video yet. The Matthew Lillard thing was brand new. They also showed pictures of the new map. So it looks like it's going to be an indoor-outdoor map. So mostly inside Five Nights at Freddy's. And it has like little Easter eggs to the different rooms that are featured on the cameras in the game. And then it also has like an outdoor component to it.
So you're going to be in like Freddy's.
Yes.
In Freddy's Pizzeria.
Yeah. And
that's cool.
Yeah, I thought so. And on most maps, there is like a generator that like you get a special trophy if you do that generator and then are able to escape. And it looks like this hasn't been confirmed, but it's what it looks like. This one's in the middle of like where the band is on stage, and they're like in the dark. You can just kind of see them. When you power up the generator, the special generator, certain things happen, and it looks like the band is going to start playing. Right.
I wonder if you can bite of 87 anybody.
Right. I mean, that's what like people keep trying to guess like what the map is going to do that's a little special, and folks are like, are they going to jump out at you and be able to attack you too? But yeah, it looks really cool. I really liked watching the first game, but also I was a big Markiplier fan when the first one came out.
Which it is very much a Markiplier game.
Yes. Everything else, I'm just like, oh wait, yeah, this lore is a lot.
It's a mess.
But aesthetically, I think the game fits really well in the Dead by Daylight realm.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for what this will bring to it, because it'll also bring a lot more like a new people to the game, I think. Yeah. It looks really cool.
Yeah, that seems like really smart teaming up. Like, like if anything can be said about Dead by Daylight, I feel like they have very smartly like gone about who they do DLC with and everything. So like you look at this and like Five Nights at Freddy's is, you know, as we talked about, there's this diehard contingent of fans, but like even more, there's this broad contingent of people who have played at least one of those games at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's cool about this is like, so there's no survivor for this chapter. Speculation is, because they said that they were dropping hints the whole time, the next chapter is going to be 2 survivors, and the assumption is that it's going to be from Walking Dead. But for this chapter, since there is no survivor players, the only thing you can play as to participate in it, right, is Springtrap. And the game, right, the games themselves don't give you an opportunity to play as the villains, and so now you're getting to play as the villain, which like I said, I think is a cool spin, and another reason why I think again Dead by Daylight is smart, because you get to play as Michael Myers or as Freddy or as Chucky,
which is what you want to do.
For some people, yes. I don't know. I always feel like, I mean, I do play killer sometimes, but not a lot. But then I watch people like my friend Kyle play, and I'm like, dude, he like lets out all his demons when he I'm just like, so it's I really enjoy watching them play killer. But yeah.
Well, I feel like that was always a problem when they made games of Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Like the appeal of those games, right? Or the films, the thing that is constant in them is the killer, right? Like it's Jason, it's Freddy. That's the marketable thing. And then they would always put you in some generic character. Right? And you were like, okay, but like what I really want to do is play as Jason. Like that's what would be fun more in this game.
For sure. The diehard horror fans who play Dead by Daylight, I bet this is the pull, is you can play as these characters.
Yeah, I mean, like, I not that I don't think they can do a really cool game where you're not the killer. I just feel like most of the time you were just playing some generic character. You didn't care. I mean, at least in that Friday the 13th game, the asymmetrical one, they did have Tommy Jarvis as one of the characters you could play
that was
as.
Cool.
And that was like, okay, that's a character. If you're a fan of those films, you know that character.
And I also thought it was really cool with those games that if you're the first person to die, if they're able to summon Tommy, like you get to come back as.
Yeah.
Is like a redemption thing for you. But yeah, I think it's going to be good. I'm excited for it to come out. It comes out. The PTB, so a player test build, is supposed to be at the end of May sometime. So I'll probably be watching it, because again, I don't play killer, but I'll probably play a few games as Survivor and then like watching a lot of people who do play killer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like that's not a game I play, but I do think it's like one of the smartest games. Like when you look at that game and how successful it's been, when we talk a lot about live service games that have failed, that one succeeding is because they have made very smart decisions over and over again.
Yeah.
And like all credit to them, because so many bigger companies make really stupid decisions.
Yeah.
All right, Mario.
Yeah, so I'm almost done with one of them, but I played 2 things. The first thing I played was Ghost Trick, Phantom Detective. which is the same director as the Ace Attorney games.
Yep.
That's a really good game. I don't. You play as a ghost.
Did you play the new re-release?
Yeah, I didn't. I played I played it on Steam, so I did. I've had messed around with an emulated version in the past, and it was a little clunky. So I've had this one for a while, and so played that one. But that's a really good game. The music is fantastic. You play as a ghost. You are dead, and basically you have the power to possess inanimate objects and animate them. So like you can possess like a railroad crossing arm and like lift it, and sort of all of these things are helping you like traverse the screen in order to make something happen. Basically, you are trying to solve the mystery of your murder, and in order to do that, the other power that you have is when you find another dead body, you can go back to 4 minutes before their death and essentially prevent it from happening. And so a lot of it is you figuring out the puzzle and like all of the timing of, okay, I need to do this thing into that thing into this thing in order to, like I said, prevent this character's death so that you can continue to learn about your own.
It's almost like a Rube Goldberg style puzzle.
In many ways. Like I said, needing to do certain things in order to get across the screen. But that's a really good game. I think the story is really good. Like I said, the music is really good. The puzzles are good. That's a game that I would give a big recommend to. Really just about anybody, because it's not a overly frustrating game. It's not like overly complicated in terms of the puzzles. It really is kind of like all right there in front of you. You just got to give yourself a little bit of time. But it's a really good one.
Cool.
The other one I played is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And
Getting ready for next year?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'd only ever played 3 before. I have all of the other ones on Steam, and so I've kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll play through some of them, because I'm sure I'll get 6 whenever it comes out next year. And I guess what I'll say about Vice City, I'm not playing. I bought these years and years ago, so it's not the like 3 remaster pack that they did. So that is, take that into consideration. The vibes, 10 out of 10, right? The world building, the atmosphere, fantastic. That gameplay does not hold up in the slightest.
Nope.
That is very much a game from 2002 or whenever it came out. There's just, and it's one of those things that it's like interesting to see. And it's one of those games I really should have just stopped playing it, but I'm like close enough to the end that I might as well just push through. It really goes to show like how far certain quality of life things have just made certain like experiences of playing a game so much better. They're just like when you fail a mission, you lose all of your entire inventory. So you have to go buy everything again. And money is like really important to, especially the later part of the game. So you lose your entire inventory. You then have to backtrack all the way to wherever the mission starts was, because you respawn either at the police station or the hospital. And it is nice. Like you can see like they're doing some like early ways to speed that process up, because there's like a taxi right there that will take you to wherever the last mission was. But the thing is, if you don't have any of your items and you need weapons to do that mission, that taxi is pretty useless. And so yeah, it's been interesting. there are moments that playing that game is pretty miserable. I've just like, no, I'm just going to save scum. If I fail a mission, I am just reloading my save because I don't want to have to. There were so many instances of, all right, I got to go rebuy a gun, or I got to go rebuy a whatever you call it, like a bulletproof vest, or I got to go do this, and then I got to go do that. And I was like, let me buy all these things and then save, and then I will just go from there because.
Yeah. This is what save states exist for.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things, and you restart from the beginning of the mission, and so it's just like all these little things of like the checkpoints in the middle of missions, and just the button that says, "Do you want to retry from like right here?" Not being able to skip through a lot of the cutscenes, and so it's just like, oh my god, like I am just like. Kill me having to watch this cutscene again for the umpteenth time.
It's that point where you start saying the lines along with the characters.
Like I said, I think that game, and I know, Justin, you've talked about it. I know you've said it's probably your favorite for a lot of like the atmosphere and the world building.
Yeah.
I think that game should probably, like, in terms of world building and atmosphere and the vibe that it creates, like that's a game that should be studied because it does so well with the radio stations, and like it really gives off like so much of like this is a particular time period. And I don't know what it is. There is something really satisfying being on a motorcycle, chasing down another guy on a motorcycle while Foreigner is playing. Like it's just, like it scratches whatever the itch was.
I think you just mean anything is better with Foreigner playing.
Yeah, also probably fair.
Walking down the street, shopping for groceries.
So like I said, I think like it's really interesting to play that game for the first time in 2025 because it goes to show like how far a lot of those quality of life things have come. But I do think, like I said, it deserves a lot of credit, especially in how it does all that world building for sure.
I find this very funny because I had a conversation about this game just this week.
Okay.
A friend of mine sent me the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6.
Okay.
And her reaction to it was, this looks amazing, but this game should really, I feel like, be set in the 80s, you know, like Miami Vice sort of vibes.
Have I got a game for you?
And I said, Are you joking? Or like, are you saying because this has already been done? She was like, no, what are you talking about? I said, they already made that game.
That game already exists.
It's called Vice City. And she said, oh, no, I didn't even know they did that. I mean, she was aware of Grand Theft Auto 3, but wasn't aware of Vice City, I guess. And yeah, I mean, like I had the exact same conversation with her about the vibes of it, and like as cool as Grand Theft Auto 6 looks, it lacks that vibe. And like, you know, I'm a sucker for the 80s, but like I feel like that neon Miami, like we're in a speedboat getting chased, right?
With Foreigner playing.
Yeah, with Foreigner playing the entire time. Like, I it's just such a, like, you know, I don't use that term vibe a lot, but like it is such like a vibe for that game, that era and everything. And it's one of the reasons that is probably to this day still my favorite Grand Theft Auto game.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, it's one of those things. Again, so I've now only ever played 2. I haven't quite finished it yet. Think I'm close, but yeah, like it's one of those things that I could certainly see how this is potentially one of the more memorable ones. Again, I mean, like I don't fully, you know like San Andreas or 4 or 5, but like I could see this one being incredibly memorable just with the music and how it captures a particular feeling.
But she also asked me, should she play it then? And I said, absolutely not. Like, those games were not very... The harsh truth of the Grand Theft Auto franchise is that those PlayStation 2 era games, 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, were not great games at the time. like everybody sort of looks back in these rose-colored glasses because they were like amazing at the time, right? Like nobody had ever played open world games like that. That's why everybody remembers and talks about them, because they were like sort of, you know, earth-shattering at the time when you played it. Like there had been open world games, but not 3D like that.
Right.
But like they always played badly. Like the controls were bad.
Yeah,
like
the controls are really clunky. I'm using a controller in my left hand and the mouse in my right hand as a way to
gosh.
control my character and then like control like the camera, especially when I'm like shooting or like any amount of gunplay.
That is frustrating.
And so they were bad back then. They're even worse now because like they're so outdated compared to any modern game. And it's not really until 5 that they feel like competent to other contemporary games. Like I always felt like Grand Theft Auto games felt like, at least in gameplay, right? Not the world, not the design, all of that's top tier. But the gameplay always felt like it was like 5 to 10 years behind the rest of the industry. And it wasn't until 5 where it was like, okay, this feels like a very modern game. And, you know, it's one of the reasons now, like I would have a lot of difficulty telling somebody for just purely fun, right? Like I know you do it because you're just kind of interested in the history and everything, but like just for purely fun, I would have a hard time recommending any of them before 5. And a lot of people think 4 is the best in that franchise.
Yeah, I know a lot of people at least really like the main character of 4. It's one of those things. If you want to play Vice City, sure, get in a car and drive around for a while. I wouldn't say actually play the game or do any of the missions, but
that is how a lot of people play those games anyway.
Yeah, those are the two things that I've played though.
Yeah, it makes me very hopeful, like because the Grand Theft Auto games often will do like little prologues or little like cutaway scenes where they put you in a different location and different things. So I really hope for 6 there is something where they do a flashback to the 1980s and they give us the classic Vice City era.
That would be very cool. I feel like
it's a really missed opportunity if they don't.
Yeah. I think like the other game that's more contemporary that I feel like also did it, like in terms of I think it's a better game, but like also really captured a feeling and maybe it's because it's doesn't take place in like the present day, is Yakuza 0. I feel like really captures.
Also in the 80s.
Yeah. Really captures like I said, a particular feeling. And so yeah, that's it makes you wonder if that was a conversation, just what your friend sent you, if that was a conversation of, do we set this in the 80s for the new one anyways.
I mean, I get why they don't. Part of why they don't is Grand Theft Auto Online, right? Like you sort of want that to be more modern, contemporary. But like I do feel like for a lot of people, I would say the most sizable part of why they are fond for Vice City and have these like great nostalgia for it is the nostalgia that was already in that game.
Yeah.
And like cutting that out for this next one, I think they'll lose something. Like, not that it's going to be a bad game. I think it'll be an amazing game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they do lose something in that. But yeah, that's very funny that you played it this week. It's funny that game, like just looking at a Miami setting, the sort of reaction from a lot of people is, "Oh yeah, Miami Vice, let's go, let's have that bright neon, let's have that foreigner playing." That's what we expect. Interesting game. Anything else?
No, not that I can think of off the top of my head.
All right. I played 2 games this week, or 2 things new at least. I did play some more Claire Obscure. I played a game called Maze Mice. Maze Mice is, what if you took Pac-Man Championship Edition and you mixed it with Vampire Survivor and also mixed it with like probably a couple other things in there. It is a weird little game. You play a mouse, running around a maze that looks like a sort of Pac-Man maze. And you are collecting little dots. And when you collect enough of those dots, they're basically experience. When you collect enough, it brings up an upgrade screen, and it gives you a choice of 3 upgrades. And so the upgrades are things like there's a needle gun that just automatically fires. There is a fire trace, so like everywhere that you run, fire follows behind you. There's one that like shoots 2 lasers out, and like they kind of circle as you move. So it does all of that, and as you are going through the maze, you pass by cats, and when you pass by them, they're kind of like statues until you walk by them, and then they like start chasing you. And so like these weapons are firing, and they will eventually kill the cats. But then there are also ghost cats that do not have to follow the maze, and they will pass through the walls of the maze chasing after you. All of this sounds like sort of chaotic.
How do you survive the ghost cats?
Well, you have to like maneuver them, right? Like, so they're not moving as fast as you. They're moving slower. Okay. But the third like game that this borrows heavily from is Super Hot. So Super Hot, if you're not familiar, is a first-person shooter where the world does not move. The world freezes when you're not moving. So every time you move, and of course the coolest way, the way you have to play Super Hot is in VR. And in VR, when if you move your gun, everybody else gets to move. Or if you turn your head to look, everyone else gets to move at that time. So this is the same way. Nothing moves until you move. So it becomes like Pac-Man as sort of a strategy game, because you're like getting to stop and like sort of think about your next move. So when you ask about like the ghost mice, you can sort of like stop and think like, okay, they're coming up this way, so should I go down here in order to avoid them? And so you end up kiting around a lot of the enemies. Like as you're going through the maze, like you're trying to think about how can I send them in a roundabout way so I can get up here and collect these pellets to upgrade. It's a really sort of unique experience. Even though it's borrowing from all these, that mishmash of all of them together kind of makes it a unique experience. I enjoy it. I don't know what the long-term like sort of value of the game is. Like as a sort of one-off experience to play for a couple hours, it's really, really cool.
Was this a demo?
I played the demo, and then I actually bought the game.
Oh, okay.
So like there is value to that, and like you are unlocking additional stages, level designs. You're unlocking additional weapons and that sort of thing as you progress. But I just don't know what the long-term like value of the game is. I will say it's $10 on Steam. I think it's on sale for $9 right now. That seems like the right price for it. It's a unique experience. Like I think if you really like Pac-Man Championship Edition, this is a way to play a very similar game with some like very kind of neat modifiers put into it, I guess I would describe it as. It gets a little frustrating because eventually you have so many of the cats chasing you that like you're like, I have to kill some of these cats. I have to get rid of some of these cats. And so then you're just like doing circles around the stage, and you eventually come up against boss cats that come out and attack you. And the boss cats are kind of funny because they pop out and they have a 9 on them, and you're like, oh, you have 9 lives. So you have to kill them 9 times. So that's a really fun little game and everything. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would say check out the demo on Steam. And you can determine whether it's worth the money or not. The second game I played is iRobot. So this is a sort of remake of the Atari game. So this was an arcade game that came out in like the mid 80s from Atari. iRobot is, so think of it as you're like setting on the, I'm trying to describe how this game looks and functions. So the original game is you're sort of like setting down, looking at the edge of a table, and there are spaces that you have to walk across. And at the far end of the other side of the table is a giant eye, and it's closed. But occasionally it will open up. And when it opens up, if you jump, and you have to jump sometimes to get to a higher level or to cross a chasm to some more floor tiles, if you jump while the eye is open, it'll fire a laser and kill you.
Okay.
And so that's the original game. The remake that just came out is made by Jeff Minter from Llamasoft. If you know anything about Jeff Minter games, they're all like basically video games if you took acid.
Yeah, that's what this looks like. I'm looking at pictures right now.
Yeah, so pretty much every Jeff Minter game is like, what if you took acid and played video games? Like the sort of classic, Jeff Minter's been making games since the 1980s and everything. One of those Gold Master series they did was the Jeff Minter collection of a bunch of his old computer games from the 80s and early 90s and stuff. So yeah, like this is, let's take that classic game, let's make it trippy and weird. I think if you've played a Jeff Minter game, you'll sort of know in advance whether you're going to like this or not, because all his games are sort of the same with the aesthetic, the sound, the graphics, the trippy visuals and everything.
Yeah, just looking at this gives me a headache.
Yeah, this is a lot.
Sorry.
You okay?
Yeah, I didn't know what I kicked. I'm sorry.
Okay. That sound was not somebody falling. It was just Mario kicking the table, apparently. I thought somebody had fallen at first. I was like looking around trying to figure out. Anyways, yeah, so, like I think it very much depends, like, is this something that you personally are going to connect with the aesthetic and the style of his games? I think his games are really cool because they're very much about the experience, right? Like they're not so much, usually the games are pretty simple when it comes to the gameplay. They're very arcade focused. This obviously it was originally an arcade game, and he's basically just doing a remake, and he's, enhanced and changed some aspects of it. But it is an assault on the senses in a lot of ways, both, orally and visually. I think this is a cool game, but it's also the sort of game that I play and I go, I don't know if I'm going to play this for 20 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think I'm going to play this for a few hours, and then maybe we'll play some more or not. I don't know that there's a VR version, but I could see this game being even kind of cooler in VR, though it's not first person. You are controlling a character on screen. And the other thing I'll say about it is this reminds me of some games from the 80s, arcade games, where it was very much like the arcade game, the computer opponent that you're playing is very much like this menacing force against you, right?
Yeah.
It's the sort of game where, like I even think of something like Impossible Mission, like when you boot it up and it's like, stay for a while, stay forever, ha ha ha, laughs at you in this very robotic voice. The music, the sort of aesthetic, this giant floating eye, like glaring down at you the entire time, all gives it this sort of oppressive, sort of, not scary, but menacing vibe as you're playing it. And I think that's really cool. But again, that's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah.
I'll say it's giving Master Control Program from Tron, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it is, a lot of those games were very much heavily borrowing from Tron at that time, right? Tron's early 80s, as arcade games were going through the 80s, a lot of them were like, how can we recapture that feeling of Tron, right? The feeling and the aesthetic of Tron has always been better than Tron itself.
Yeah.
right? Like it always ended up inspiring really cool video games more than Tron itself was like a great film. I like Tron, but
It's a good movie, but yeah.
it's not a.
It's not a great movie. It's a good movie.
It was never at the level of Star Wars or some of its contemporaries.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I think this is a neat game. But you know, your desire for Jeff Minter, your love for Jeff Minter is going to certainly affect how much you enjoy this game. All right, that does it for what we've been playing. So let's move on into the news. And we mentioned earlier the Phoenix Down, one of the like classic moments from Giant Bomb lore. Giant Bomb, much like the Phoenix, has risen from the ashes. We talked about it last week that this was the end for Giant Bomb. They appeared at a PAX over the weekend. There was a PAX panel that was supposed to be focused on a particular show that they do. Friday night, the PAX panel was on Saturday. Friday night, all of a sudden, everybody related to Giant Bomb suddenly start tweeting out, like, check out the Giant Bomb panel Saturday night. And everybody started going, this is weird. Why are they all hyping this thing, including some of them like Jeff Grubb, who had already left Giant Bomb at this point. So it seemed very weird, like, okay, something's going on at this. So they did appear at the panel, and the first thing they announced was, we have purchased Giant Bomb away from fandom, and we are taking it completely independent.
Let's go.
So 5 partners, Jeff Bacalard, Jeff Grubb, Dan Reichert, Mike Minotti, and Jan Ochoa are the partners for this. How that's split up, they didn't talk about, but like they talked about it as partners. So I'm assuming it's a fairly even split, or at least, you know, a somewhat equitable split between the 5 of them. They announced at this panel, right, like fandom had worked with them. They spoke very well of fandom, which was funny because both Grubb and Reichert had pretty much bashed fandom in like some of their streams and stuff. But apparently this had been going on for a while, the negotiations behind the scenes. I did read somebody speculate, at some point, is this a tax write-off for fandom? They could see the writing on the wall. They had killed this product. It wasn't going to be worth anything for them. At some point, they would be selling it for scrap parts, like the name, the URL, right, to somebody who wanted to do something with it. So at some point, selling it off to them, probably at what we would think of as an incredibly reduced price. You know, not nearly what has been paid for this property in the past.
Yeah.
At some point, is this a way for fandom basically to write off and say, oh, this was a complete failure, and we're kind of writing it off, and we'll take the tax break on how much money we lost and everything on this. But they did transfer over ownership. That includes the archives, everything as far as, you know, has been said so far, everything associated with Giant Bomb, the partners take control of starting yesterday. So this is, we're on Tuesday, starting on Monday, they start producing new content. They are publishing that new content. They have switched to a new subscription model. And so they are asking people to subscribe to that through the website. They did raise the price on that. It had been $5 a month. They raised it to $10 a month. You get a $20 discount if you pay for a year. So instead of 120, it's 100. But their thing is, hey, we are completely independently financed, and we're all having to support ourselves.
Yeah.
Via
No, that's
this.
completely reasonable.
Yeah.
And you know, like part of this, one of the big announcements that came out of this, and this is something I've talked about missing quite a bit, is that they did their first one this morning, that they're going to start producing quick looks again. So quick looks were what they, sort of the original Let's Play videos online and everything, where they would go and look at new games and upload a video. And they say quick looks, some of them can be like 2 hours in length, depending on the game. But they are starting to produce those. Those were something that they cut because their corporate parents had told them in the past, hey, these don't get the most views and everything. This isn't worthwhile. Now that they're not focused on producing content that simply gets a ton of YouTube views, they're trying to go that completely sponsored route. They feel like they can go back and start producing some of these things that are beloved by fans, but maybe don't have the YouTube algorithm push behind them, right? Those sorts of videos. So that's all very cool. It's very cool to see them branching out and everything. I know yesterday they did a video, and it Kind of Funny had sponsored the video, and Kind of Funny, which people aren't familiar, is another game sort of like news streaming platform. They said that they really wanted to sponsor it because they wanted to support, this other group like going independent.
Yeah.
So this is all like very good news. I think it says something that the only way that games journalism seems to be surviving seems to be an independent route.
Yeah.
Like traditional games media, which was corporate owned, going back to, companies like Ziff Davis in the print publication days, that this just doesn't work. And this is maybe a broader commentary about journalism in general, right? Journalism in general, we're seeing right now with 60 Minutes, and they're trying to negotiate this deal with Trump, who's suing CBS over 60 Minutes, and the people working at 60 Minutes have no say in any of that, right? Like it is Sherry Redstone, the owner of CBS, is making all of the decisions there. That just doesn't work for journalism anymore. Like big corporations owning journalistic outlets doesn't work. And we're seeing it on a sort of a microcosm scale when it comes to video games, that the only ones that are being successful right now seem to be these independent outlets. Your Kind of Funny, your Nextlander, all these sorts of outlets, Giant Bomb now. Traditional games journalism doesn't feel like it's going to exist in another 5 to 10 years. Obviously, last week we talked about Polygon also completely firing almost the entirety of their staff after a sell. So I know that sounds very negative, but I think this is actually a huge positive for the game industry to have a name like Giant Bomb not just be suffocated to death, which is how it felt last week, but I feel like the entire game industry has been celebrating this news. To see a very big name in games sort of rebirthed through this feels like nothing but good for the game industry.
Yeah.
So best wishes to those at Giant Bomb that this works out and everything. I know I'm excited to see what they'll do with this and everything. It feels like it's been a slow death the last few years for Giant Bomb. So it's exciting to see some enthusiasm behind it. Let's see. Tony Hawk 3+4 there's actually several bits of news about this game bizarrely this week. So one of those is, we talked about this earlier, that Tony Hawk 4 originally had just sort of open levels without a time limit. So you would kind of skate around and go up to NPCs, talk to them, and they would give you a specific quest to do within that level instead of the traditional 2-minute time limit on a Tony Hawk level. So apparently they are offering you different options. You can do a 2-minute time. So you have 2 minutes to get through the level and complete as many of the goals as possible. Or you can change that to 10 minutes or a full hour if you want. I think I have 20 minutes on there, but I believe it's 10 minutes. So this seems like their compromise of, we're not going to do the traditional open world from Tony Hawk 4, but we're going to, you can set an hour.
I was say, if you set it for 60 minutes, that still gives you plenty of time to.
Yeah, I think that's plenty of time, and you can always like restart, right? If you run out of time, you don't accomplish everything in that time, just like you could in the other, the first 3 Tony Hawk games. So that seems like a good compromise. I understand from a design perspective why they went that way with it. Let's see. We had talked a little bit earlier that Tony Hawk had said he insisted that Bam Margera be brought back for this. He was originally going to be excluded from Tony Hawk 3+4. And they have apparently officially brought him back. He's signed onto the game.
So have any of you watched that show? I can't remember the name of the show now.
Jackass?
No, well, I've seen all of those. Yes. Okay. But it's like, I don't remember the name of it, but like each episode kind of does a deep dive into something pop culture that's happened. And one of the first episodes is over Bam Margera. Mm-hmm. I did not realize what has gone on with him. That he got placed on like a conservatorship, kind of like Britney Spears. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Like, and it drew a lot of parallels between the two of them. And so I'm surprised based on having had watched that episode now and seeing where he is at. Mm-hmm. 'Cause it's a lot.
Well, they didn't bring him back for the last Jackass film, right? Like, that was
which I saw in.
Yeah, like that was a point of contention, right? Like he felt betrayed, but like they were like, we can't really.
And Steve-O and I think somebody else from the franchise was in this like kind of mini documentary, basically, is what they are, and talking about like what had happened. And he just got like really into drugs. Like while a lot of them sort of cleaned up their act, he got further into drugs, which
really spiraled, is my understanding.
Yes, which is why he then got placed in the conservatorship. So, I mean, obviously the documentary stopped at a certain point, so I don't know if he has gotten better. I hope so before something like this happens. But yeah, it's real sad. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like just thinking about situations like this, it puts friends and family in a very complicated position, right? Because at some point, yes, this person they need money to survive, right? So at some point you're like, yeah, let's throw them some work. But then at the same time, like, right, sometimes what they're going to do with that money.
Yeah.
And you feel like, well, giving them any sort of significant amount of money actually may be more dangerous.
Detrimental,
Detrimental, I think. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about where he currently stands in his life.
Skimming Wikipedia, it seems from the last year that he's been struggling.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from Tony Hawk's perspective, this may just be a sort of loyalty thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is not Tony Hawk's money.
For sure.
This is an easy way for him to kind of throw his weight around and like feel like he's supporting someone. And I completely get it from that perspective. Like, I mean, I guess I don't know what Tony Hawk's motivations are. But I can completely see like going, hey, this doesn't cost me anything. Why don't I throw this guy a bone? Maybe this will help him out. Whether that's the best thing for him or not.
I would like to think that Tony Hawk is the kind of guy who's like, like you said, let me throw him a bone. Let maybe do something good for him. We'll help him get back on track.
Yeah.
He seems like that kind of guy, honestly.
Yeah. There's a good documentary about Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
That kind of talks about some of his personal flaws, but like that he is a generally like generous guy. Certainly has done a lot, I feel like, to support skateboarding in a more positive way than some other people. So, so I mean, like, take that news for how you will. Speaking of Tony Hawk, he also said that he wants to see a Thug remake next. So that's Tony Hawk's Underground. Those games lean even more into the Jackass stuff. Particularly, I think it's part 2 that really has a lot of the Jackass stuff in it.
Part 2, definitely.
Yeah. And so he talked about wanting to see that. I don't know if you would do that as like separate games, like Thug 1 and Thug 2, or do Thug 1 plus 2, how you would even approach that. But I know that first Thug at least is beloved.
I think that first one is still a really good game.
Yeah.
And I mean, the second one plays well. I just don't know if socially it holds up in terms of,
That old
ideals
Jackass
and stuff like that.
That whole Jackass like thing has kind of passed by.
Yeah. I think similar. Well, I think we've talked about this. It feels very much of a certain time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost a period piece in a way now.
Sure.
I mean, it's that early 2000s sort of like Tom Green, Jackass, that whole sort of MTV like era, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's the reason it feels like a particular version of masculinity that I think I'd like to think we're like, maybe that's not what we should be
even to the
lifting up anymore.
Even to the point now where like the newest Jackass has like the new recruits or whatever, and one of them is a girl, and it surprised the hell out of me. Well, because she also just like everyone else is like, oh, like does the reactions to the pain and stuff, and she's like, bring it on, and I'm like, yeah. So it's interesting the way that it is attempting to adapt, but I don't know if it's in a way that is. It's certainly not as popular as it was back in the day, but yeah.
Well, and I this is not necessarily connected to that, but I also just think, like, as you've talked about with like a lot of those guys, Steve-O in particular, like really cleaning up like his life in terms of like addressing addiction and stuff like that.
I would imagine it's harder to do those things if you're not high off your ass.
Well, I also just imagine there's like some amount of like one's personality like coming down in terms of like a taming like the wildness in a sense.
Yeah.
But it's what happens to all of us as you get
Oh,
older.
absolutely.
Like a lot of your youthful eccentricities like sort of taper off a little bit, and
Just a little.
yeah, I mean, there's a Frontline documentary that I use in class often called The Merchants of Cool, and it's from like the mid 2000s or so. And one of the things they talk about in there is like MTV of that generation. They talk about how marketers talk about young people, and there's the mook and the midriff. And the mook is like the young, dumb male adolescent that's like emulating Jackass and Tom Green. Like, I mean, these are like the marketers using this terminology. And the midriff is the young female who is trying to emulate Britney Spears and the like teen pop starlets of that era. And so, I mean, you think about that now, and like, I don't think anybody is describing the youth audience in that way anymore, right? Like those two caricatures don't exist in youth culture. Not that they don't exist at all, but like they are much more like a sort of like niche audience there anymore.
Well, and it feels like it's very nostalgic to a certain point, because I feel like it's, to bring this to wrestling, if I may, it's the same thing with like
You did go to the
nothing
wrestle.
else.
You did go to the wrestle recently, so
it feels like the whole Attitude Era, right? Like you couldn't do that today. Like that was there are certain things that you could not do. And so it feels like very much part of a particular time, and I mean, like that is that same era as well. And so I just don't know how well Thug 1 I think you could do, and I think it would be just fine. Thug 2, you'd I think be changing that game at like its core, at least in terms of like the story. Like you and I know they kind of are getting rid of the like softer story in part 4. But like I feel like what you're doing in that game in terms of like the missions of 4 aren't really like telling a story. The missions in Thug 2 are so connected because it's just about like creating chaos, right?
Yeah.
And so if you like strip that from the story that exists, it makes even less sense.
Right.
So, whereas again, Thug 1, I think you could remake because that's just about like you're a kid from Boston trying to get discovered.
Yeah.
Right.
Part 2 is you're now part of this like professional team and let's jackass around the world.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of where the extreme sports games of that era eventually wound up, right? Like, this is how we get BMX Triple X, right? Like, all these games were like, okay, how do we appeal to this young male audience for whom maybe Tony Hawk isn't cool anymore, right? Like, Tony Hawk at this point, like, isn't cool enough on his own. We need this more kind of extreme tangent,
Cutting
of
edge
that.
type of thing.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like, there's a lot of games from that era that I feel like do not hold up very well. Like Culture, just from the early 2000s, more than even going back to the 90s or even, you know, like other decades, that particular decade, a lot of that doesn't hold up very well.
Oh, yep.
A lot of the like rock rap from the late 90s into the early 2000s, right, doesn't hold up very well now.
Yeah.
You don't hear people super nostalgic for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's neat to hear them talking about that. I hope that this game is successful. That, you know, 1+2 was a fantastic return to that franchise. I cannot recommend that enough. If you have at all any interest, like, that game is entirely worth your time. And that 3+4 comes out very soon, like June, July, I forget when, but very soon that game's coming out. Let's see. Deltarune is, we talked about a couple weeks ago, is coming out on Switch 2. They've announced that game will be cross-buy on Switch 1 and 2 and PlayStation 4 and 5. This does not seem like too shocking of news because that doesn't seem like a game that needs the extra power of the PlayStation 5 or of the Switch 2.
Well, and especially Toby Fox has been such a troll about the PlayStation versions.
Can you explain what this means to me? I'm so sorry to cut you off. Before you get into it, though, I was like, what does this mean in terms of cross-buy?
So you buy on one platform and you have access to it on the others.
That's what I thought, but I also didn't know if that seemed...
So you don't need to have FOMO over the secret room. That's different in different versions.
I see.
But he's also just such a troll about the PlayStation versions because, you know, PlayStation required him to add trophies. And he was like, I don't want to add trophies. And they're like, but you have to. So he's got...
Is there like a trophy for starting the game? Like, that's...
It's like, you know, beat chapter 3 without issue.
Yeah. Well, some
Inspect the throne.
some of the trophies are like that on some PlayStation games. It's like,
Well,
good
we're
for you.
definitely-
You opened the game.
and we're definitely like that beat chapter 3 without issue. Issue is an anagram of Susie. This is the type of shit that Toby Fox would pull. Are we gonna have to beat chapter 3 without Susie? Everyone is.
I feel like early Xbox 360 games with achievements, you had a lot that were that way.
Yeah.
Like, there's an Avatar: The Last Airbender game that's sort of infamous that you can get all the achievements in like 10 minutes of playing the game. Because
I
like,
remember that game.
people didn't understand achievements and they were kind of getting forced into doing it.
Yep.
And a lot of developers are like, I don't know, you get 10 achievements for finishing the first level.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people eventually started to understand, we can use these more as incentives, right?
Yeah.
to kind of-
Whereas Toby very much does not want people to be. He's like, seriously, please don't pay attention to the trophies. Just play the game. Which, of course, you know, everyone's going to pay attention to the trophies anyways. But the other really cool thing about Deltarune, that info that got released, because he did the last newsletter before the game comes out. No more newsletters till it comes out. But so we finally got the alternate ending to the Spampton Sweepstakes, which was 3 years ago now, which is wild. But then the other thing he announced is he didn't want folks to like get it on Switch 2 first and then not have access on other systems, so they're releasing it everywhere at midnight June 5th Japan time. So in the US it'll be out on June 4th. So June 4th is going to be...
Even though none of us will have our Switch 2.
Right. Well, because it'll be out on Steam, it'll be out on
Right.
PlayStation, all of that. And so all of the Undertale Deltarune community is like, June 4th is now our national holiday and Deltarune tomorrow, but we're going to play it then. And I am so excited because I got into Undertale Deltarune not too long before the Spampton Sweepstakes happened. So like it's been 3 years and this is the first time I'm going to be here for a new chapter release, and it's going to be amazing. And I cannot wait to see what everyone dives in and finds.
Yeah. So I paired this up with a story that they also announced that Hogwarts Legacy, if you have the Switch 1 version, which is by all accounts a pretty terrible version of that game, that the Switch 2 version, if you have the Switch 1 version digitally, you can upgrade to the Switch 2 version for $10. And the Switch 2 version is going to be much more like the game as it appeared on PlayStation 4 and PC and everything. Mm-hmm. Maybe not quite, obviously the graphics of the PC version, but much closer to the graphics, less of the loading issues and everything. Much more of the game as it was meant to sort of be experienced originally. So the reason I kind of group these together is we're seeing lots of different sort of approaches to how to do these upgrades between Switch 1 and Switch 2 versions. Obviously, Nintendo, some of their games, they're giving those like free upgraded versions, and some of them they're charging $10 or $20 to get the upgraded version. Sometimes that makes sense, like with Kirby, because you are getting like an entire expansion.
Yeah.
In the case of the Zelda games, that makes a lot less sense because they're, at least from my perspective, not adding significant additions to those games.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see how third parties are handling this. I feel like the $10 upgrade, even for Hogwarts Legacy, feels, because they are doing so much significant different for that game, that feels like fair, at least. Mm-hmm. So anyways, we'll see. Moon Studios, the developers behind Ori, has warned that review bombing may lead to the studio's closure. I just basically included this because Moon Studios has a lot of kind of history of people criticizing it as a bad work environment, that the head of that studio has had accusations of being sort of abusive. And he came out and complained that people were review bombing their newest game and that could directly lead to the studio being closed, which feels manipulative.
Yeah.
Like people are upset because the last update to that game was apparently a disaster. And so people were, review bombing it on Steam and everything, which is what happens with every game on Steam if there's a bad update. So, this feels a little like manipulative behavior. Like, oh, you should not say bad things about our game or you're going to put everybody out of jobs. Well, I mean, people have a right to criticize a game.
Yeah, I'd say when I first saw this, I was actually kind of like, yeah, because I was thinking of like all the people who review bomb because they're pissy about female characters and non-white characters.
Yeah, this is not because they put a black woman in the game.
I'll say, but this is not that. This is a petty little man being like,
I mean, at least that's how it comes off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if this was a studio that had a different history, it would maybe
Yeah.
not come off that way.
Yeah.
Let's see. This was just announced this morning that Microsoft is laying off as many as 3% of their workforce, or about 6,000 employees. They stated this was across all divisions of Microsoft. So we, at this point, do not know how this affects the gaming division of Microsoft, right? Microsoft's obviously a gigantic corporation that does lots of different things. This is probably less tariff related. Microsoft has been talking about downsizing for a while. So like, because they're in a services industry, software industry at this point, Microsoft does sell some physical products like the Xbox. We talked it last week about them raising the prices $80 to $100 on the hardware. That is probably at least somewhat tariff related, but like laying off 6,000 employees for a company that's primarily in a services software industry is probably less about tariffs and more about Microsoft just downsizing.
Right. Especially because, do you mind if I jump ahead?
No.
With one of the points today also being that like the top 3 downloaded games for April were Microsoft games.
Right.
Like, it seems like they have found like a market or like they found a way to sell more of the software, or
Right.
I guess in partnership with Sony, obviously. So yeah, who knows if it's going to impact the studios like that are selling these.
Yeah, and to be clear, this could be people getting laid off from like the Surface division, right?
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
their
yeah.
laptops, right? Like, that could be a lot of these people. I doubt this is a lot of people from the Windows division,
Right.
or
Yeah.
the Office division. Those
Yeah.
are their 2 cash cows.
Right.
But it could be lots of different areas that this is happening, not necessarily games. So let's just go ahead and jump to that next story since you brought it up. PlayStation Network's top 3 downloaded games for April were all Microsoft games. Oblivion Remastered was at number 1, Minecraft at number 2.
Chicken Jackie.
No.
We should also just point out how amazing it is, like this long into its lifespan, that Minecraft is still the number 2
Yeah.
best-selling game
Yeah.
in a month.
That's insane.
Like, this is not Minecraft 2. This is not Minecraft DLC. This is just Minecraft.
Yep.
And then number 3 was Forza Horizon 5. At number 11 was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. But like the top 3 games on PlayStation hardware were all Microsoft produced games. Which
I will be interested to see if that trend continues, because I feel like right now there's still like this feeling of sparkly eyes. I can get Microsoft games on my PlayStation. So I will be really interested to see if like a year from now, if that still continues or if it balances out more.
yeah, and a year from now you have to start considering too, like how many aces do they have left to pull out, right? Like Forza Horizon was a big game
Yeah.
to put out on this. Obviously, Oblivion Remastered was, the original Oblivion came out on PlayStation 3, right? Like this is not what people typically think of as a Microsoft franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like, but we did last week talked about that Gears of War remastering that they are putting out on PlayStation. So that'll be the first time that comes out on PlayStation hardware. So if you've been in that PlayStation ecosystem for years, this will be your first chance to finally play those games. They still have Halo up their sleeve. At some point, Halo will come out on PlayStation. And that,
Oh yeah, when the Master Chief Collection gets put onto PlayStation, that'll almost assuredly be number 1.
Oh yeah.
Unless it's the same month as some other massive game, but I don't think Microsoft would make that decision.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you put that game out in a sort of down month, right? Because you want it to generate sales. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Alicia. Like, how is this just like a passing fad, or is this like sort of the new normal of Microsoft dominating the charts across other systems, right? And one thing we have not heard from Microsoft still yet is anything about their Switch 2 plans. You know, other than they have said, hey, we intend to be there on the Switch 2, but they have not announced any games.
Yeah.
And I'd very much predicted that Switch 2 reveal, we would get at least one high profile Microsoft game. Like I thought we'd get, the Master Chief Collection or something. And I'm still kind of surprised we haven't gotten, the announcement of something for Switch 2.
Yeah.
Like
It's less than a month away, guys. Step up.
well, I mean, it was sort of like Sega, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was shocked that Sega did not announce a Sonic game. Sega announced games, but they did not announce a Sonic game originally. And you were like, come on, like, there's got to be a Sonic game. Like, that will sell gangbusters on the Switch too.
Yeah.
The overlap between Sonic fans and Switch fans is like, not a perfect circle, but it's like at least like
It's definitely a Venn diagram.
yeah, there's definitely some overlap there, right? And I feel like the same with Microsoft. Like, that feels like even less of a direct competitor than
Yeah.
the PlayStation 5. So, it feels like you could take some of those, maybe take an older Forza Horizon game. Instead of 5, you get 3 or 4 and port those over to the Switch. I guess we'll see. But yeah, our sympathies to the people who are losing their job at Microsoft. It's never a good thing. It's always sad when people lose their jobs. I think particularly right now with the, chaos of the economy. Let's see. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, the developer announced that they are ending support, but they are not currently delisting the game. So there's not going to be no more like updates to the game or anything. This is their asymmetrical sort of Dead by Daylight, the Friday the 13th game we talked about earlier. This was an attempt to make one of those using the Texas Chainsaw Massacre license. I don't know if you actually ever played this or just watched some of it.
I more so watched. Lots of folks like really, really enjoyed it, but I think its failures where Dead by Daylight is smart, and it made it only in that one setting, that one context,
Right.
that one world, basically. And so I think people just lost interest.
Yeah.
I also think the gameplay, like, in trying to make it so much more different than Dead by Daylight, added a lot of things. Like one of the other things that I think makes Dead by Daylight a success is that the gameplay, once you figure it out, is really simple. You go into the map, you do the generators, you run from the killer, you try to leave, right?
Right.
And there are a few items here and there, another thing that they announced was that they're going to add a new item, which hasn't happened in the 10 years that it's been there. But there were so many more things to do in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was several ways to be able to get out.
Right.
That
right.
really complicated it. And if you didn't have if you weren't playing with a team and were just playing with randoms, some of those extra ways to get out would be closed off to you because you really had to coordinate a lot of that stuff. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that was my experience. I watched some of it. I did not actually play it. And that was sort of my experience watching it, was that this looks complicated.
Yes.
Like, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? But like, I think I think you're absolutely right. It does limit the audience.
Yes.
And I think also, like, we talked about this at the time, I feel like, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a property is very limiting, right?
Yes.
Like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre has never been Freddy or Jason,
Right.
or Michael Myers.
And then once you get past the family,
Right.
you really, there's no more ability to add more folks.
Sure,
Really.
yeah.
Like, you can keep adding people because as long as they're like teenagers, it's like, it makes sense for them to be like the survivor role. But
Right.
outside of the family, like, who else would they add as killers? And so, like, I did think adapting kind of a Dead by Daylight thing, where each family member had their own specialty, and so had like some of them set traps, some of them were better at stalking the survivors, but
Right.
yeah, and that's not to say that Dead by Daylight isn't complicated, because I've had lots of folks who've never played it say that it is difficult to learn because of all of the things, and even their what's the word, the tutorial. Even their tutorial is a little, it helps, but also it doesn't. However, even with it being a little more complex, they kept it simple enough, I think. That there was a lot going on. I thought it was a good game. I really like to see these asymmetrical attempts, like the Killer Clowns from Outer Space was super interesting.
Right.
I really liked the Friday the 13th one. It made me kind of sad when that one.
Same.
Yeah. And then this one, but it's just, I can see why it doesn't work, but I like watching the attempts.
Was the Evil Dead game similar as well?
Oh, yeah, Evil Dead. And then there was one that was based in like a high school where you played like different high school students, and there was a variety of different killers. Something like fart. I'm not going to remember it.
It wasn't The Faculty, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I would play a game based on The Faculty in a heartbeat. That would be amazing. But
I mean,
yeah.
all these games suffer from the Fortnite problem, right? Which is what we talk about with a lot of these live service games. One of the things that Fortnite did that was really smart was they went to that really goofy, cartoonish style, right? And there's no seriousness to the entire property, really. So you can bring in and have like the Terminator battling Michael Myers, battling Rihanna, battling.
My character is a cat in a big robot costume.
Yeah, so like you can sort of do that, and it is the purest attempt at like the metaverse.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it is Ready Player One.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
But like when you try to take that and do it with something like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Or do it with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it doesn't work.
It really doesn't, yeah.
Like you start putting a cat in a mech suit into like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and at some point it's like, okay, well, this isn't Texas Chainsaw Massacre anymore.
Well, and I mean, I feel like you could say that like Dead by Daylight kind of did the same thing as Fortnite.
Oh,
right?
it did.
Like,
Yeah.
Sure, it's a horror metaverse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
in the sense of like it's loose enough in its boundaries that we can add in the Five Nights at Freddy's killer
Right.
right next to the Stranger Things monster or whatever.
That's the Demogorgon, yeah. It
I just love that she had to correct you.
It's fine.
I'm
did.
still just sitting here
It was-
picturing Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a cat in a mech suit.
So, but Bubba, which is what he gets called in Dead by Daylight, Leatherface is also in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
So that also fits into that universe. And honestly, I could see a cat in a mech suit being in Dead by Daylight. I don't know if he would be a killer or survivor. Although
Depends on which cat.
yeah, because I was just thinking.
Is it Garfield?
Villain killer? But
It's Monday. You guys want to go race go-karts?
Mondays are the real killers. But they have the alien character, Sigourney Weaver's.
The Xenomorph.
Her character.
Ripley?
Yes,
Ripley,
Ripley.
yeah.
Thank you. So they have her in the game because she was the survivor that was released when they had the Xenomorph. And in the waiting room, at least, the cat comes up and she pets the cat while they're
Jonesy.
waiting. Yeah. The cat comes, like Jonesy comes out and she pets the cat and like holds it and stuff while you're waiting for the killer.
So Jonesy could get the mech suit,
Yes.
right? From
Yes,
Aliens.
This is what I'm advocating.
Jonesy.
Yes.
Meow.
Yeah.
Away from her, you bitch.
And I've said that, like, so Freddy is not necessarily a top tier killer. And I've always said it's because they went generic with him. Like, they didn't try to get Robert Englund because, like, part of what made Freddy Freddy is the sassy retorts, that especially in the later ones.
The camp.
The camp, exactly. And so because they don't have that, but, like,
Him using the power glove.
yes. But
That's Freddy, right?
Yeah. Now I'm playing with Pyre.
yes.
I thought you were talking about Freddy Fazbear, and I was
Oh,
like,
no.
what?
but them adding Matthew Lillard, adding
What's
Nicolas
the line
Cage
from
has
part 3 where he shoves the girl's head? Welcome to primetime,
yes,
bitch.
yeah. Welcome. It reminds me of Rick and Morty. Yeah. Yeah. I have lots of feelings about Dead by Daylight, but it makes sense why Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not there.
Well, I think this is the problem that all these live service games are running into is like you get a really cool property. Well, okay, we're going to make a game around it. Okay, how do you monetize that long term, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really challenging unless it's something maybe at the level of a Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars, you could milk the extended universe and all of that, bring in all the different designs of stormtrooper uniforms and different legacy
unless you
characters.
go like genre, like is what I think. So like if you had like a sci-fi version,
right,
possibly that would include Star Wars, but then could also include
Star Trek and Aliens and all
absolutely.
that. But yeah, I mean, the Fortnite problem, right? Dead by Daylight, again, like I said earlier, one of the reasons I kind of admire that game is that I feel like they've been very smart with their approach to it. And like by doing it as a sort of like, this is a horror genre metaverse, that has allowed that game to survive, where a lot of games that had more money behind them, at least initially, right, and had more hype around them have faltered.
Yeah.
So like, I think this is sad because like you, I have always found these games really interesting, even if I wasn't a big player of them. I thought this game looked really cool.
Yeah. It definitely had that like Texas Chainsaw like Massacre vibe to it.
Like when you were inside and they played a lot with shadow in a way
Yes.
that these games traditionally don't.
Yep. All like the character design was on point. And even the different maps being different locations kind of on the compound farm, whatever you want to call it. I thought all of them were really, which was perfect. But
Not surprised by this news.
no.
Let's see. The Fallout television series has been renewed for a third season ahead of its season 2 premiere, which will come in December of this year. That's good news about that show. That's a very well-liked show. And I guess that show premiered last spring.
Yes.
So they are getting a season 2 out within the next calendar year, which is better than a lot of streaming shows have done recently. I imagine that's why they went ahead and renewed for a third season, so that they can just move straight into that third season as soon as season 2 production has ended. And maybe get that out in a much quicker turnaround.
Yeah,
that
I'm
makes
sure
sense.
that's the reasoning.
I liked this, but I'm not gonna lie. Like I was glad that I watched it with Melissa because she had already watched it and she was rewatching it and she explained things as it was happening. Because even though I've like played these games and understand a bit of the lore, some of it got really out there and confusing, and so we would pause it and she'd be like blah 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 and I'd be like, oh okay, continue.
I mean, it's no Righteous Gemstones.
Oh well, of course not, but nothing can be that.
The only show in recent memory that has made me pause multiple times during an episode because I was laughing so hard I couldn't pay attention to what was on screen.
It's so good.
Let's see. Okay, so pretty big news. Apple has been forced to allow outside payment solutions in its apps. No more 30% or 27% cut. So this is the ongoing legal battle with Epic that is also sort of tied in with what's been going on in the European Union. Basically, the courts sided in favor of Epic, who is suing them, again, related to Fortnite, and saying that Apple should not be able to take a 30% cut of everything that they sell. The courts originally ruled in favor of Epic and said, hey, fix this, Apple. And Apple did it in the most convoluted, complicated way possible that was still giving them a cut, even if you used an outside payment source, like say PayPal or something of that nature. They were still going to get their cut of this. So even if you weren't using the App Store, Apple account payment system. So basically they took them back to court. The judge said, what the hell are you doing, Apple? You have intentionally done this in the least compliant way possible. So we're just ruling completely in favor of Epic in this situation. You have to do this immediately. Immediately, companies have started rolling out new versions of their apps that just allow you to directly pay them instead of going through Apple. So, for example, one of the ways to look at this is if you have the Amazon app on your phone or iPad, you cannot buy Kindle books through that app. You have to go to a computer, like a laptop or desktop computer, in order to buy Kindle books, because if they sold those because they're a digital good, they would have to give a 30% cut to Apple. So they can sell you physical goods. You can purchase stuff. You can purchase a physical book and have it sent, and they don't have to give Apple a 30% cut. But if they had sold a digital version of that book for the Kindle, they would have to give Apple a 30% cut. So Amazon just said, go. There's a little thing that pops up that says, go to your browser in order to buy this. Go to your computer to buy this. And this is part of the reason why Microsoft, for example, had not put out a streaming app for their games, in part because Apple wanted them to give them 30% of the Game Pass subscriptions. And also that Apple wanted to review each game individually. So they wanted each game to have to go through a review process to get a rating on the App Store, instead of just saying, hey, we're just going to give the app itself a rating because you're accessing multiple different games. That to me makes the most sense because that's what they already do with Netflix and Hulu and these video streaming apps. So why would games be any different?
Yeah.
And this would be streaming games. This would not be downloading Game Pass games to your phone, obviously. So in response to this, Epic says they are working to get Fortnite back onto the App Store. It has not been on there for, I think, the last 5 years. So it's been a while that it's been off the App Store. So, yay, I guess. I mean, this feels like Apple throwing their weight around too much. I think the bigger implication for video games with this is if you can make this sort of an argument when it comes to cell phones, then can you also make this argument when it comes to game consoles?
Yeah.
So can Epic say, okay, PlayStation, you have to let us put the Epic Game Store on PlayStation, and we will sell our own games through our own front end, and we will keep 100% of the profit, and we no longer have to pay you a 30% cut. And I think part of Apple's argument about this, and part of the argument about this whole situation has been, do people want that, right? On a computer, that's less of a hassle. Because that's the way software has always worked on computers, but it is not the way software has worked on your television, on your game console, on your cell phone. So do people really want 20 different app stores on their phone or on their game console? Isn't part of the reason people go to these devices instead of, say, a computer is that the simplicity?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a 30% cut, like you said, the way that Apple handled it was very smarmy. And I love that the judge called them out on it. And yeah, I don't know that I would want 17 different equivalent to the Play Store apps on my phone.
I mean, we've already seen this sort of happen on the PC, right? Steam gets in early on the digital marketplace, and then at some point, every other major publisher said, we're going to release our own digital marketplace. So everything from Battle.net to Uplay from Ubisoft to Origin from Electronic Arts, to the Epic Game Store. And for the most part, what has happened is everybody's rejected those other stores and said, no, we want everything via Steam, to the point where even Microsoft, which has the Xbox app built in, now releases all the Microsoft games via Steam as well as the Xbox app. So maybe that's what eventually happens, is that people just reject all these third-party options. I think probably there's going to be some confusion in the short term, right? Let's see. Some good news, I think, probably for the game industry. It was announced this week that Mafia: The Old Country, which is, I guess, the 4th game in the Mafia franchise, is going to launch at $50. They did show off a new trailer for this game, and as part of that, they said this game is this is much more of a guided experience. So less of the traditional Mafia, which have been very open world games. Mario, earlier when you were talking about games that have a very particular place and time, like Mafia 3, I feel like does a really good job of that. I thought about that earlier and then forgot when we got to talking about other things. But the trailer for this makes it look to me much more like an Uncharted game than it looks like a Grand Theft Auto clone. And that may not actually be true, but it definitely has more of those vibes of single player action adventure than open world exploration game. So it's going to be a smaller game. They're selling it at $50, which is obviously 20 below the current standard of 70 for new games.
I think that's a good thing. I think we've talked about it. There's needs to be a second, almost like a second tier of game, and recognize, and hopefully that will encourage some of those studios to do these smaller projects as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the terms like AAA and AA game. That was never about quality. That was always about budget. How much developers were putting into those games. And so it makes sense, right? If you have a game that's more of a AA game, maybe it needs to sell at a cheaper price. So, I noted in here, Clair Obscur has been super successful. That game launched at $50. You can find it very easily online for $30 right now. I think part of the success of that game is that price. You're getting a new, what a lot of people are calling one of the best role-playing games of the year for $30.
Yeah.
And especially from a studio that's, I don't even know, you could say less established, unestablished,
Right.
for Clair Obscur. I mean, obviously there's been previous Mafia games, but yeah, I know we talked about this with Helldivers as an example as well. I think being sold originally at 40, I believe.
40, yeah.
So I think that this is not just I want to spend less on games. I think it's just one of those things that if you have this second tier of games in terms of what they can cost, my hope is that it means that you'll get this wider range of projects that it doesn't, again, not everything has to be the $70 or $80 massive production.
Yeah.
And that may be what is more sustainable, just like what we've talked, and again, what we've talked about a number of times.
Yeah. I mean, this always makes me think back to when, they did NFL 2K5 and they released it at $20. And that was when Electronic Arts went to the NFL and said, we want to buy exclusive rights to the NFL because we do not want them releasing a better football game at $30 cheaper than we're releasing ours. Games were $50 at that time. But I understand a lot of people, and I feel this way often. Sports games don't improve enough to be $70, $80 each year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you released a new version of NBA 2K that was $30 or $40, that seems a lot more reasonable a new Madden that's $30 or $40 a year, that seems a lot more reasonable. I think to most people.
Well, I know you said it, God, like over a year ago at some point, but it was one of our big questions of like what type of game or what franchise would most benefit from that games as a service model. And I think that you had said those like big sports franchises, the 2Ks, the Maddens, it just feels like it would make so much sense. You're going to pay a small fee for like the roster updates, but rather than spending $70 on what is essentially roster updates, we're just going to continue. Here's Madden football. This will be the game forever for this point.
I mean, like I like the NBA 2K games. I buy those, but I buy them every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And those games, I mean, I don't know about the Maddens. Those games are nice because you can eventually get them for very cheap.
Yeah.
Right? If you're willing to buy last year's game, you could probably get that for less than $10 at this point, 24.
Well, actually, they had NBA 2K25 on sale on Steam the other day for $10.
Yeah, I feel like I saw 25 for really cheap recently as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's always been the case, right? Like, you can get them if you wait till the next year's version comes out. But, like, even the year it comes out, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think, there is a market of people, right, who have the, current generation of consoles. They've upgraded to a Series X or a PlayStation 5, but they don't have $70 to $80 to drop all the time for a game. And so they're looking for, and, of course, games drop in price and everything, but like oftentimes you want to be in on the action. Everybody's playing this new game. You want to be part of that. You don't want to wait 2 or 3 years for the price of the game to drop. And I think $50 games like hit that sort of sweet spot for a lot of people. Because like, I like the Mafia games. I think this new one looks cool. I was probably not going to buy it at $70. I definitely was not going to buy it at $80. At $50, particularly if I can get it even a little cheaper than that.
Like, first time it goes 25% off or something like that.
Yeah, like all of a sudden that becomes a game. If like, the word on it is at all positive, I'm much more interested in.
Yeah.
Related to this, we just mentioned Electronic Arts. They have announced that they have no plans currently to raise their game prices. I mean, they are selling games at $70 now, but like looking at what Microsoft had announced, looking at what Nintendo has done with Mario Kart World, that they have no current plans to raise their games to $80. That's a little surprising because Electronic Arts, particularly with their sports games, seems like one of those companies that could get away with this. The people who buy Madden are going to buy Madden almost no matter what. Same thing with FIFA or FC. Yeah, like that is, I don't see that name maybe lasting. Yeah. I think at some point they'll have to rebrand that name. Let's see. Final Fantasy VII Remake creative director, Tetsuya Nomura. Said, quote, he can't share why the final boss form of Sephiroth looks different and the new Magic the Gathering card.
He's such a troll. He's like, yeah, he does look different. I can't share why. And I'm like, Nomura, I am begging you. I don't know, my theory is that it has something to do with the whispers. We saw how he was able to use them in Remake, and then in Rebirth we got a different type of whispers, so I imagine that will tie into the different Safer Sephiroth form. But I also just love the fact that our first like tease of this is in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, so they're releasing that expansion for Magic the Gathering that's all Final Fantasy cards.
They also made one for the laughing scene from Final Fantasy X, which is just iconic.
They also have 15 different SIDs.
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah. It's the same card, but it's 15 different
it's all the different
designs.
SIDs from the different games.
The only one that didn't get a SID was Cindy from 15.
Yeah.
That's cool that they did that.
Yeah, it's cool. So in most versions of Magic, you can only have 4 copies of one card in a deck. In most constructed formats, the Sid card specifically says you can have any number of Sids in your deck. So you could have all of the Sids in your deck.
Your deck just Sids all the way down.
Yep. So they've done some fun stuff with the Final Fantasy set.
People who don't know, Sid is the only like common character that's in
Sid,
all
Biggs,
the
and Wedge.
Final Fantasy games. And
it's not the same character, and it's always a different character, but it's a consistent name.
Right.
You'll always see a Sid.
usually an airship captain, but not always. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting. One of the things I thought of when like I looked at the image of the card and everything, I was like, oh, that's different. Like, I just wonder
Yes.
what percentage of the audience is going to even recognize that this has changed. Obviously, right? Like the diehard fans are the first to pick up on this and everything, but like I feel like there's a huge amount of the audience, and I would say even like some of the like big role playing game fans.
Yeah.
Like, if you have not played that game recently, if you not looked at art from it recently, are going to be like, I didn't even notice there was a difference.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are people who saw Nomura say this and went back and looked again and were like, wait, what? Really? Oh my gosh, yeah, it is different. He's such a troll. I love him.
We mentioned Grand Theft Auto 6 a little earlier. The trailer that they released last week for that, when they announced the delay till 2026, got over 475 million views in its first day, which set the record for the biggest video launch ever online. To give you sort of a point of comparison, Deadpool and Wolverine, the trailer for that film, got only 365 million views. Which, only,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
that's
That's what I
more
was
than
saying.
the U.S. population. But like, I do think this is kind of amazing to think that, a video game is getting more views than a film trailer. Because when you think about film, right, you think about something that is like really accessible to everyone.
Yeah. Well, and especially putting Deadpool and Wolverine as a comparison point, how beloved is the MCU? 2, how
Right.
hyped was this movie for Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine? And then like to see Grand Theft Auto 6 blow that out of the water.
Yeah.
Right, because you could say, okay, well, Deadpool and Wolverine particularly pulls from a young male audience, but Grand Theft Auto 6 does too, right? Like, so this isn't like they announced like the new Disney video game and like it got that many, right? This is kind of amazing, right? Like, I think one of the things that's sometimes easy to do is lose sort of perspective on how big some video games are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, one of the things they talked about was it was the biggest launch day in entertainment history.
Wow.
Like, it had generated more income than any like film on its release day or, anything of that nature. And, you look at these sorts of numbers and you can go, okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, video games are this big now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I still have trouble wrapping my head around that because this was not the way video games were when I was a kid.
Right.
And even knowing it, even, talking to people now, like it's sometimes difficult to, I know there was one of the actresses from Thunderbolts, one of the new characters, they had her on a red carpet and they said, well, what do you think about the new Mario Kart coming out on Switch 2? And she's like, there's a new Mario Kart? And they said, oh, yeah. And you get to drive as like one of the cows from Moon Meadows. And she said, oh, wow. And like, she's like freaking out on the red carpet about this. And I just thought it was like fantastic because you're like getting this, actress who you would think like has, traditionally actresses would be like, oh yeah, my kids, sometimes I play video games with my children when they ask me to. And she's like freaking out as much as, any sort of like person on the street might over a new Mario Kart. you know, some actresses excluded. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis excluded because like she's a bigger video game nerd than most video game nerds.
Yeah.
Let's see. Krispy Kreme has launched Pac-Man donuts.
I can't believe we didn't go on a field trip to Marion to go to Krispy Kreme to get some before today's recording.
I mean, did anybody want to drive to Marion and get Krispy Kreme donuts?
Man, it's so far.
It's like 20 minutes.
I mean, if we had one here in town, I feel like we definitely would have done that.
yeah.
But it is a little bit of a jaunt to get over there. Yeah, so there's 3 different flavors. There's a glazed one, there's a chocolate-filled one, and a strawberry-filled one. This is cute, neat. See them doing something, you know, for Pac-Man and everything. I bet this gets some people in the door. Again, if there was one conveniently located, I would run over there and just try them, even though I know they're just the same old donuts.
Yeah, there's one. Wasn't there a cherry one or something?
Yeah.
Whatever the red one is the one.
Strawberry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just delightful.
Yeah, so they have like some promotions going on with that and everything, but neat to see. We already talked about PlayStation Network. Top 3 games are Microsoft this year. So we'll conclude with the producer of the Tekken series, Harada, says that he wants to add a Waffle House stage to the game. So if you're not quite connecting the dots there, Waffle House is very famous on social media for the fights that break out at Waffle Houses. So this would make a lot of sense. You take a big fighting game franchise, set a level at Waffle House. He said he has reached out to Waffle House and they have just basically ignored him.
That's the best.
I assume they think he is probably like trolling them or something. Like I feel like Waffle House, maybe they don't want to embrace that fighting image, right? Which I totally get on their part. But also this feels like brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
Right? So he said, look, if they don't get back in touch with him, he may add a Hustle House, which if you don't know, there's the Huddle House chain. So I assume he's playing off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like we may get a Waffle House stage in spirit, if not in name. Add it to a Tekken game soon.
That's just delightful.
Tekken is like, it's the tournament, right? Like it's a tournament fighter.
Yeah.
Like then the lore. So you could like even make it like nice and happy at the end. The fighters like get to make
Eat
amends
waffles.
over a waffle.
Over like the hash brown stack.
I feel like one of the most famous videos of this is one of the waitresses there like yelling and screaming at somebody for fighting and like kicking them out. And so I feel like you need that guest character
Yes.
Yeah.
of the Waffle House waitress.
That's she's the new fighter for the next Tekken game.
Well, I mean, just DLC with this
Yeah.
stage and everything. Like,
Yeah, make it an outfit for one of the existing
Yes.
characters.
Yeah.
yeah, you could do that. I know they sell those skins and everything, so that would make perfect sense. But I feel like this is the right sort of goofiness, like I want in games. Like even when it comes
Yeah.
to like product placement,
Yeah.
okay, this is the sort of like goofiness. This isn't we're going to randomly put Skittles into our fantasy adventure game. This feels like actually organic and
Yes.
it sort of
Yeah.
makes sense and it's a wink and a nod to the audience.
Yeah.
This is just a fun idea.
Yeah.
So and this makes me like him more.
Waffle House CEO, if you're listening to this, reach back out to Katsuhiro Harada. He's being serious.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he is completely being serious on it. All right. That does it for news. So let's transition it over to our big question. And our big question this week comes from Derek from Kentucky, which, you know, he's been just toying away at this question for the past few weeks to make sure it's a perfectly crafted one for us. So his question is, if you could take 2 completely unrelated video games, so no like Super Mario Brothers and Mario Kart, but 2 completely unrelated video games and swap their main playable characters, then play through both games using the characters you swapped. What 2 games and characters would you most like to do this with? So basically he's asking, hey, if you could take 2 games, swap out their main characters, and then play those new games with those swapped characters, right? What games would you most want to do that with?
So I actually have an answer. And it's more for like the sound effects of it, but Banjo-Kazooie and then Fox and Falco. Primarily, like I said, just for primarily just for the noise, because like you would have banjo. That's exactly what went through my head. And then from Kazooie, right? But then when you flipped it, I just want one of them to say, "Do a barrel roll," which I know is Peppy's.
Slippy.
It was Peppy's line, but like
No.
the second.
No, it's Slippy Frog.
No.
Yeah, it's Peppy.
Peppy.
Is it Peppy's?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Slippy.
I'm just thinking about Falco in a backpack and
Yes.
like giving, yeah, there you go.
He's his angriest.
How much attitude
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have the whole time.
To me,
Oh, that actually works really
yes,
well.
Kazooie and Falco are like, so it wouldn't be like a huge game change, but like, but also it would be good enough to where I'd be like, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you say Falco in the backpack, yeah, you sold me on it.
Yep. Except
I would
instead
play
of
that.
just hearing rah, 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 like you would hear Falco like giving Fox some attitude,
Yeah.
which makes me so happy.
Be more careful next time, Fox.
But was it when you shoot him, or if you accidentally shoot him in that very first level, something like? I'm not gonna remember it, but yeah, there's a lot of those.
It's just like a thanks, I guess.
Yeah, thanks,
finally.
I guess, yeah.
Could use some help over here.
Yeah.
About time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you could still have the other characters, like the mole. I always forget the mole's name in Banjo. That could be Peppy, because he's kind of like the one that teaches you throughout anyway. Slippy.
Slippy would be grunty.
Okay, yeah. I was like, Slippy's kind of useless.
Slippy is so
Anyway,
useless.
so, I mean, grunty, yeah. Or one of the sisters in Banjo-Tooie. But, yeah.
All right. That's a better answer than I was
Full
expecting.
palette swap, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have an answer?
I have 2 answers. One that like I would actually be interested to see how these characters would approach their games. If you traded out Sora from Kingdom Hearts and Frisk from Undertale, I think that would be.
That would be your dream.
I don't know that it would be my dream, but I think it would be interesting to see. I think that would be.
But which Kingdom Hearts game?
I mean, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
The look.
I'm gonna go with the first one just for
Okay.
easiness.
Simplicity.
Yeah. So that's my answer of like it would be fun to play these games with these characters and these worlds. My answer just for funnies is Pac-Man and the dad from Dream Daddy. I don't know how you would play those games anymore, but it would be really entertaining.
Wait. Is Dream Daddy that, like...
Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator. Like I said, I don't know how it would work, but I think it would be funny.
I mean, I could see Pac-Man in a dating simulator. Like, I feel like he's very...
I see Pac-Man in a gritty fantasy.
Well, and then Mrs. Pac-Man comes out. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? you
have a baby at home. But I feel like Pac-Man, he's not doing it for the sex. He's doing it for the emotional support, right? Like waka waka. Just like crying on someone's shoulder.
It's because he's haunted by all those ghosts.
Yes, he is. That's true.
I mean, depression is a killer.
The ghosts become more metaphorical than anything.
I mean, it really is like this tragic game, right? Because the ghosts were his crewmates on the ship, and they all died, and he can't get over it, and his marriage is falling apart. And he goes out and he starts dating and cheating on his wife because he can't deal with the ghost in his life.
But they do the interview with him, and you just see the ghost, like, in the back. Like, he's at a park or something, and a ghost just, like, peeks out from behind a tree.
I mean, that makes Dream Daddy a very different game.
I know.
I mean, Dream Daddy does have the cult ending, so is it a very different game? I don't know. But
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
Pac-Man,
yeah.
it really is a very different game. There's no debate.
There's a Dad Rector's cut of Dream Daddy. Just
Yeah.
mhm. What the?
I love that this is news to you. Not to me.
I don't play a lot of Dream Daddy. I don't.
I've never played it, but I've watched
I don't-
Jacksepticeye.
I've played the original Dream Daddy, not the Dad Rector's cut, but I played the original. It's cute for like a little dating simulator.
I was
I
saying-
mean, I've only played one dating simulator ever, and want to guess which one it was?
The pigeon one.
The Dead by
It
Daylight.
was a good guess.
Because of my nail. I pigeon
No.
it was.
When Dead by Daylight did a special Valentine's Day thing.
It's called Hooked on You. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, of course. That,
I think you would actually enjoy Dream Daddy.
I think you probably would.
I think you actually would.
yeah, I think you might really enjoy that. It is a better I don't play dating simulators, but like that is a better game than it has a right to be.
Yeah. And it's made by the Game Grumps.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'd like it.
And then there's
Also, one of the dads is trans. You have the option to make your character a trans dad.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played it, but it's not. I don't think it's like a punching down type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Which it feels
no,
like
it's
that
very-
absolutely
Yeah.
could
That's
have been. Right?
why I'm like.
oh no.
Oh, no.
no,
It's very wholesome.
Yeah.
It
You have
is
like a great relationship. I mean, depending, I guess, on how you do it, but you're intended to have a great relationship with your daughter and like developing these healthy relationships with the other dad who you're dating.
Yeah, it's a wholesome, I think is the right word for it. It is not a game like poking fun at its premise. It's
Okay.
It is like almost sort of like what if Disney made a like
Dating.
gay dating simulator.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Like yeah, like there's maybe some darker aspects, but like it's really not like as Mario said, it's not punching down.
Yeah.
Like
Or like that.
one of those things where it feels like I could see where like being gay is like the butt of the joke is like the whole thing, but
Yeah.
no, it's not that, because I think I had that same hesitation
Yeah.
when I like first heard about it as well, or when they first announced it.
Yeah. No, I don't think any of the go through like a gay crisis of like, but you're also a dad. I don't think any of the relationships
That's been
have
my
that.
gay crisis. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, Mario.
In terms of this answer, the only thing, and I know they're not related, but they're both
They're not
Sega.
supposed to be.
Well, I know, that's what I say. They're both Sega, so they're related in that sense. So maybe there's a part of me that wishes they would be more related.
Is it Sonic and Outrun?
Oh, it's Sonic and Kiryu from Yakuza. Because I feel
That
like
may be weirder.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like if you put Sonic in Kamurocho, that's really what like the Sonic 06 world should have been. Right? Like when you get like the real weird freak instances where Sonic is interacting with humans. I feel like that's what it could have been, and that would have been beautiful. And then I don't really know. I guess Kiryu, you run around a lot in those games. That's really all you do sometimes in the Yakuza games is just run around. So it works.
Starting to feel less bad about my choices now. Between Pac-Man and Daddy. And yeah.
So actually, there was a. It might have been Dorkly had made this video, but I saw a video the other day that swapped Mario and Sonic in their games, and like the joke was that Mario could not traverse the Sonic landscape, like the loops and everything.
Yeah.
And then the joke was that Sonic just like ran through the Mario levels and killed all the Goombas because they came into contact with his quills. So that was like the first thing that came to mind because I had just recently seen that video. But I think the like like this is maybe not more serious, but like actually taking a real stab at it, I thought of Q*bert and Jumping Flash. So both of these are games about jumping, and that's really your only action that you can do. And so I thought, well, like you could take a Jumping Flash game and put Q*bert in it, and it doesn't change the game significantly all that much. You could put Jumping Flash in a Q*bert style game, and that would still work. Maybe even making it a first-person Q*bert game, which would be very disorienting, and like if you have fear of heights, probably like terrify you. Maybe a first-person like virtual reality.
I was gonna say
game,
VR game,
like really screw with people's senses and everything. But like those were the answers that came to my mind, like of not as a joke, but like these games might actually work with these characters swapped out because they're doing a lot of the same sort of things. So, anyways, that's my answer. Not as creepy as some of the other answers. I'm not going to point fingers, but I bet you can guess which one I'm thinking of. Anyways, that does it for this week's show. Thank you to Mario, Christina, and Alicia for joining me. Thank you for everyone listening. As always, you can find more of our content by going to salukigames.com. Please share this podcast with other people. That helps us grow the listener base and everything, and we're always hoping to do that. If you have a question you would like to submit for our big question of the week, much like Derek did this week, you can send that to justin.young@siu.edu, and we will try to read that in a forthcoming episode. But all that being said, thanks again for listening. We will be back soon with another episode. Until then, play something fun, and we'll talk to you soon.